Welcome to Tech Careers with Diego. You're probably wondering who Diego is, right? So I've been in the tech world for the better part of the last decade, and I've held jobs all over tech, really. So like network admin, I've been IT help desk guy. I've done software QA, I've done software engineering, and I've been in product management now for the last like 4 years or so. And so all along the way, I've had this interest in what does it take to get certain jobs in tech. You see, I do not come from a background in computer science. While I did study some of that in college, right, I ended up finishing with humanities degrees. So I worked my way into tech, and I always hear similar questions from other people, like, how do you get into tech? And so because of that, during my career, I've been trying to help people as much as possible, gather information, research, and figure out, all right, how do we do this? All right. But enough about me, enough about my experience. You're here because you want to know the 5 reasons why you likely are not getting interviews for tech jobs. All right, number 1. So the first reason you are not getting interviews is likely because you are spraying and praying. Now, if you don't know what this means, this is an old gaming term from the late 90s, early 2000s, right? So if we have any gamers out there who've played Counter-Strike and that kind of first-person shooter stuff, you know that this is a term that is applied whenever someone is just shooting without being precise or kind of adding much forethought into it. So if you are spraying and praying during a job application, what this means is you're applying to anything that you see and you're not doing your due diligence. You're just sending your resume everywhere, right? So what ends up happening is you're sending in applications that are not very well catered to what the job descriptions actually are. And another thing to note here is that recruiters can tell right away whenever you are just spraying your application and just sending resumes everywhere, right? Within 5 seconds they know, okay, this is more of a generic application rather than a more carefully thought out application. And so one of the problems with this strategy is, and I don't even want to call it a strategy, one of the problems with this method of applying to jobs is that ultimately you are applying to a lot of jobs that you're not going to be a good fit for. And then you'll finish the day applying at 25 jobs, you don't get a single call, and you're like, well, what am I doing wrong, right? The problem is you're not catering your job application to whatever the job might be, or you're being immediately ruled out for a couple of reasons. So for example, you might be applying to jobs that you don't have enough experience in. You might be applying to jobs where you have too much experience in, right? That does happen. You might also be applying to jobs that require specific industry experience that you might not have. So for example, I used to work at a tech company that worked in hospitality and travel. For some of those jobs, I do remember seeing job descriptions where they were looking for other people that worked in maybe airline industries or hotels, right? So that could be a requirement that you're just not catching. And so whenever you send a resume without that forethought, you're going to get immediately rejected, right? And then another reason I do see this is, if you're applying from outside of the United States or, from one country to another, you might be looking for sponsorship and you're applying to companies that don't offer sponsorship, right? So take the time, figure out what the job descriptions are, and be a little bit more precise with how you apply. And so that takes us to the second reason why you are not getting interviews, and that is your resume is not highlighting the skills that the job description is looking for. So for example, right, let's say you're looking for a job developer job. You go to Glassdoor, LinkedIn, wherever it is you're looking, you type in, let's say, software engineer, right? Super simple. And you have a bunch of experience, right? You might be the full stack engineer. You could do the front end, you can do the back, DevOps even, right? You can do it all. However, your resume only mentions these skills like one by one, and you apply at a job that requires front end skills. Not just so much requires it, but that's almost the whole point, is a front end job. And so you might see other jobs that are front end engineering, but for example, this one just said software engineer or software developer. But when you actually look at the job description, it's only looking for people who have experience in front end technologies, who can know the difference between Angular versus React, right? Like that's what they're looking for. And the thing is, you might have that experience, but because your resume is not at all catered to what that job description is, a recruiter opens up your resume, sees a list of, just average software engineering skills, and doesn't think that you actually excel at this. So the answer here is take the time, look at the job description. Okay, this is front end. Now, go back to your experience. Don't BS here. Look at your own experience and look at what you know and start listing the front end technology skills you do have. And let's go ahead and bump that all the way to the top, right? Don't let it sit in the middle. Don't let it sit at the bottom. A recruiter takes 5 to 10 seconds to read a resume. So you need to make sure that they're thinking, okay, I'm hiring for a front end engineer. I open up a resume, boom, front end engineer skills, boom, 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 right? That's how you want to do it. Now let's talk about the third reason you likely are not getting interviews, and that is the dreaded cover letter. So, you might be applying on Glassdoor, for example, and you'll see a couple of buttons there when you're applying. One is apply now, the other one is upload resume. Then you have another one that's way down below that says upload cover letter, and you might see the word optional there. If you see optional or it's not required, that is not your excuse to not do it, right? If we have 100 applicants, you can bet that at least 80 to 85 are not going to submit a cover letter. I wouldn't be surprised if it's higher, honestly. So go ahead and take the time to do a cover letter. Now, why do you want to do a cover letter? Let's say I'm a hiring manager and I got 2 resumes on my desk. One is an average resume, the other one is an average resume. Okay, but what sets them apart? One has a cover letter that starts including details about, one, why they're interested in this company, why they're interested in this job, what they want to do in their career. And suddenly I'm able to get a sense for who they are from a personality perspective. So a cover letter is important because, one, it shows the level of effort you're willing to go to get this job. 2, it differentiates you from all the other applicants that are not going to submit a cover letter. 3, it adds flavor and spice and creates a narrative of who you are as a candidate that you're not going to get in a resume. A resume is very vanilla, right? Even if we were to work closely on how to make a good resume, at the end of the day, it's still going to be skill, 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 skill. Now, the problem is, if you're a hiring manager and you're seeing 15 resumes at once, I don't get a sense for who you are. But with a cover letter, you create a story, you create a narrative. And here's the other thing about it is, if you can create a narrative and I understand who you are, I am going to subconsciously become invested in you as a candidate, right? It might not be obvious, I might not think about it, but now I know who you are. And now in the back of my head, I can piece you together and how you would fit in this process. And when we're talking about getting jobs, if you can move the needle just even a little bit, it's worth doing. All right, let's talk about the fourth reason you are not getting job interviews, and that is you are not networking enough. Now, I know if you're coming out of college or you're kind of early on in your career, you kind of roll your eyes at this networking idea. Like, you've heard this everywhere. Oh, I got to network. It's not what you know, it's who you know, right? And let's not place all of our eggs in that basket, but we got to place some eggs in that basket because it does matter. And this is why networking matters. So there was a recent study between the Federal Reserve Bank and MIT researchers that found that if you are referred, you have a 30 to 50% greater chance of getting a job offer at a company. Now, that's a big difference, right? And the reason why this is important is companies want referrals for a couple of reasons. It is very expensive to have a hiring process going on, right? All those jobs you see listed on all those job boards, that costs money, right? So that's an obvious expense there. And then we come to probably the most important reason, and that's the opportunity cost for certain jobs not being filled. So if I'm at a company and I know I need to fill 2 engineers for this one job so that I could get this project up and moving, not having those engineers is costing the company a lot of money because that project isn't happening. If that project isn't happening, we're not getting the results and the value from that, right? So that's the downstream effects of hiring. Now, this is why companies like referrals. This is why companies have referral programs. At many companies I've been at, you can have a program where you can get $1,000 up to $5,000 if you can refer someone and they get in, right? So this is why they're always looking to get referrals in, because hiring is expensive, and if you can have an employee who's in good standing refer someone else, it seriously passes like a lot of that process. It makes it faster for the employer, right? And so that doesn't mean that if you network, you're going to get the job or you're entitled to the job, but it definitely does help. So you might be saying, okay, that's great and everything, but I don't have an extensive network. I'm coming out of college, so how do I do this? I'll have a longer video on how we do this effectively, but the TLDR of it is this. You find a job you like, you look at the company, you go look them up on LinkedIn, Now you look at the people working at that company, and there's two kinds that you look up. Either recruiters at that company, if they are using recruiters, they might be using like external recruiters as well. Or you look at who the hiring manager could be or someone in that department. Now what you do is you reach out directly to them on LinkedIn, and you don't say, hey, can you refer me? That's bad luck. Don't do that. Don't do that. Instead, what you do is you reach out to them and you say, hey, I'm interested in this role I found. Can you tell me a little bit about the company? Do you like working there? What's the culture like? What are projects that excite you? Try to build an actual organic conversation. And what you end up finding is that they'll become, again, invested in you. And over time, if that conversation does grow organically, they might just go ahead and refer you off the bat. So that's how you can do it without actually knowing anyone in that company. Now let's talk about the fifth reason you are not getting interviews while you're hunting right now. And that is going to be, you're just not applying enough, right? And so this is a little counterintuitive to the first point, which is saying you're spraying and praying, which seems to insinuate that you are applying too much. That's not really it. Spraying and praying is you're not applying effectively. This fifth point is you're just not applying enough. So the whole point here is you need to apply with a high level of quality when you do submit an application, but also have the numbers to back it up. So at the end of the day, finding a job is going to be a numbers game, unfortunately, right? So I've been in this industry for a while. I have a good career. And even at the last time I was searching for a job, I maybe applied it to anywhere between 25 to 30 jobs. And I got about 5 to 6 interviews back. So this is about a 20% response rate, which is actually really good. And I don't want you to expect that you're going to get this anytime soon. And it's not because I'm some savant at this. I mean, I do research this and I enjoy this a lot. But it has to do with the fact that as you grow, you gain experience, you get more niche and specialized experience. There's less people you are having to compete against, right? So the chances of you getting a response is going to increase, right? But if you're just starting, it's going to be a numbers game. Don't be surprised if you apply at 30 places and you don't hear back, right? My first job, I remember applying to everything I saw. Must have been anywhere between 30 to 50 jobs. And I only got one callback, and it was for a internship, right? So I ran with it, I got in, and then the rest is history, right? So the point is, learn how to apply effectively and add quality to all the numbers that you need to be doing. So this is going to take some time. You don't just apply for a day and call it quits. You don't apply for a week or even 2 weeks, right? You might have to go over and over and over and over and over again. But if you do combine some of these tips and you are applying often, you are likely to increase your chances of getting a job. All right, that wraps up today's video. So thank you for joining. If you have any more questions, feel free to hit me up at techcareerswithdiego.com. Talk to you soon.